So in the back pod is the ArduPilot. All of the connections go in, aileron, elevator, everything out to the RC receiver, which is in the rear pod, along with the transmitter for the data link, the GPS receiver, which all feeds back to the ArduPilot. All of the inputs are up to inputs from the wing, including solar, aileron, airspeed, and the antennas. Up to the next pod with the maximum power point tracker and the voltage and current sensor for that point in the system. The voltage and current sensor between the system and the motor, so you can measure your power draw. BEC is what provides power to the ArduPilot, 5 volt up to 10 amps. This is the Squid. All of the batteries are now in the fuselage. 4 in this pod, 3 in this pod, 2 in this pod, total of 9 batteries. They're all put into this harness, so there's only one harness, no longer one in the wing. Those input to this adapter, which pulls in the power from the fuselage and the power from the MPPT, all the solar panels. So charging is all done through this harness and powering the system. Forward of pod, nothing but batteries, fuses, and the wiring harness. Battery, fuses, wiring harness. And on top, the ESC, which is sticking out the top for cooling airflow now. Motor mount, gearbox, as well as the new cooling port for the motor and exhaust port for that motor. Throttle line travels back to the autopilot. The control surfaces for the tail all travel up the boom and out this pod, turn around and go to the autopilot. Connections
So they come into this pod and then just turn around?
So they come into this pod because the boom extends up to here, so they're coming all the way up, turning around and coming back to the autopilot. Connections made at this point, again, are your left and right aileron, center, and each tip solar array, which go to the individual MPPTs, airspeed sensor, and the 2 antennas which get pushed out into the wing.
When they get pushed into the wing, is there an obvious place to put them?
You just push them in there. There's no obvious
So there's no connector or anything?
There's no connector or anything. The gap in the wing is just big enough to fit this through. Point the antenna, feed it in. We haven't had signal issues. You could make a wiring adapter here, harness, and put these fixed in the wing if you preferred. With the receiver, this is the receiver that you're going to be doing the binding to bind it with the DX18 that you guys have at Lincoln Labs. You'll have to put in a bind plug, bind the transmitter. There's no Spectrum telemetry anymore. All the telemetry is downlinked via the ArduPilot radio, the 3DR radio, 900 megahertz. Updates to the tail. All the servos are in the tail now. No push rods. It's just plug it in, screw it on, hook up the linkage. So you can see on the tail, there's that plug-in spot and the linkage going to the rocker on the elevator. Screw the elevator on with the Phillips screwdriver. Keep the elevators off. I'll grab it quick.
Say something wise while the video goes.
I hope you have fun with this. We're gonna have a phone conference once we have the airplane. We'll explain a little bit more, so we have to set that up. So let me tape some stuff on so we don't lose it.
All right.
So onto the wings. Do you mind standing up?
Nope, that's fine.
This here. Onto the wings. So at the junction for the wing tips, you just insert the blade.
Yeah, this is the lighting here is not okay. There we go. That's better. Yeah, go ahead.
So there's the connection from the tip solar array, which goes in here, and the aileron, which goes in here. In this wing also is the airspeed sensor with pressure sensor and the line going back, which plugs into the center. So just plug it in, screw the array on, tape it at the trailing edge, similar to how the center section one's taped. Seal everything up. There's screws on the leading edge to take out and put back in to hold it in place.
Tell everyone not to touch the solar cells or set things on top of them.
Correct. Solar cells are fragile. When you're mounting the wing to the fuselage, get all the wires up, out of the way, drop it in place. There's 4 bolts which are secured with an Allen wrench. Do you have the centering CG hook? So one addition we made is a CG hook, so you can tell if you make changes to the payload, battery location, etc. Like as I said, all the batteries are in the fuselage now. If you want to move things around and put them back in the wing, CG is very important for trim. So we came up with a CG hook that when you put the plane all together, there's a plate that bolts on with these bolts right over the center. So this will bolt on top of here using the bolts that mount the wing. So it'll be placed here, take the handle, hook it, and make sure the plane hangs slightly nose down. If it's going backwards, you have an aft CG. If it's tipping too far forward, you have a 4 CG.
Can you say something about how to adjust the CG?
Adjusting the CG would be, if you're way forward, take a battery out of the nose, put it in the wing. If you're way back, try to move things forward.
Thank you. That's useful for the video.
In the way of
yep.
calculations there. It's all kind of by feel. The way it's laid out right now, where all the batteries are, 4, 3, 2, motor, has the CG in the correct location. So if you take a picture of it hanging to reference for future use. I think that's about it. There's a cover once you have the wing on that covers this section that gets taped in place. Connections to the autopilot for clearing and logging data are made through this door. There's a micro USB, mini USB, whichever one it is, port right here. Hook it up using the ground station software. You can download the logs, clear the logs, adjust what information is actually logged and at what rate.
Okay. So what modem is this?
This one?
Yeah, which one is it? I noticed 2 drivers.
This one is the transmitter. It's the 900 megahertz transmitter. So there's the US and EU version, 900 and 433.
Okay, and this
options.
is the 900.
This
okay.
is the 900.
All right.
So there's a equivalent, looks almost exactly the same, that has a USB port instead of this connector that you plug into a laptop, tablet, etc., whatever's running your ground control software. You connect on the correct channel, and you can update gains in flight, tune gains in flight, change flight modes, etc.
Okay.
I think that any other questions, feel free to ask.
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Brian. Very shadowy face there.